That's right. We're talking the NFC South today. We're talking about projections. What do I expect out of Penix Jr., London, Bijan statistically? We're breaking down the South and we're doing fantasy football projections for every major player. And we're doing it now. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show. Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
All right, so we're starting off with the division winner, the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be a tough race. The Bucs and Falcons are two monster teams right now. Each backfield has a top 5 running back. Each team has a gunslinging quarterback with grit and determination. Pass catching abilities to the rafters on both of these teams. Let's start off with the Falcons. They're a 12-5 team this year. They're taking the division. Not easily, but they're taking it. I'm going to give the Falcons a win at home versus the Bucs. I'm going to give them a win at Minnesota. I'm going to give them a win at Carolina. This is an amazing start. 3-0. Going to be a tough loss against the Washington Commanders here in week number 4. I think Buffalo takes this week 6 game. So after the bye week, before and after the bye week, 2 tough losses. Now, it could go a bunch of different ways. I think it's a win in week 7 against the Niners. I think that it's going to be a win in week 8 against the Dolphins. I think it's going to be a win in week number 9 against the Patriots. I think it's going to be a win against the Colts. I think this is a win against the Saints. I think this will be a win against the Saints down here. Let's call this another Carolina victory, and let's give this Falcons a win against the Cardinals. That leaves for a loss in Washington, as I said, in week 4, a loss in Buffalo in week 6, a loss. Let's say they lose to the Jets in week 13. The Falcons, they split that. They won this game but lose this one, and the Rams this game. And then the Saints, they win the Saints game up here too. So they play the Saints twice, they're gonna beat the Saints twice. This is 12-5. This is what 12-5 looks like. If I had to massage this around a little bit and say, I think that if this team is a 13-win team, the win comes by way of this Rams or Jets game. But this is how I predict the wins and losses to go for the Falcons specifically. Michael Penix Jr., gunslinger in chief. Look at him. This guy's going to be a phenom this year. This guy's going to come out swinging. 4,000 yards, he can do that with ease because he's got a cannon attached to his shoulder. Did it in college. Gunslings everywhere he goes. He can run the ball. People don't know that because he protected himself because he had to play injury-free football to make the NFL. He had too many season-ending injuries in a row. That's why the man's 97 years old coming out of college. Doesn't matter. He's fresh. He's ready to rumble. If you take his final 2 games when he really had players catching the football, if you remember his first start, he had a lot of drops and things didn't go his way. But the last 2 games extrapolated would be like 4,500 yards. So this is not a crazy number whatsoever. It's probably a low estimate. His touchdown total we might bicker about. Again, not including game 1 of the 3 played games last year. He played these last 3 games in a row. People were dropping balls left and right. If we extrapolate the data from the 2 games that he played, his final 2 games, I think he'd be around something like 25 TDs passing. But I think that we're going to see him throw in the 31 to 33 passing TD realm. 3 to 4 rushing TDs. I think that's what he's going to do at the goal line. He's going to be an electric player with the ball in his hands. Defenses will worry about his speed. He's got great speed for a quarterback. He had a pylon diving touchdown late in the year last year, so he proved he can move, and defenses may not spy him like they will Lamar or even a Mahomes to a degree, but they will spy him a little bit. They'll have to account for him on the field because if he's left alone, if there's an open lane and the defense is stretched out, he's going to take it for a first down. So 100 to 150 yards, he could easily grab that. This is a great year, but what this is the more important part, this is a good fantasy quarterback, especially in Superflex, but this is a guy you could have in a rotation. You could draft him and Fields together. You could draft Kyler Murray and Penix Jr. together. You could grab Bo Nix and Penix Jr. together. This could be a rotational spot start fantasy football starter for you. But what these numbers do is fuel fantasy football glory across the other positions. Bijan Robinson's going to run for at least 1,500 yards on the ground in 2025. Why? Because Penix Jr. is going to keep defenses honest. Defenses weren't worried about Kirk Cousins passing the ball, especially when they got at or around the goal line. They just stacked the box and said, we know Bijan's coming. We won't let him in. Bijan would knock. No one would answer. He wouldn't score touchdowns like we know he's capable of doing. Penix Jr. steps on the field in the final 3 games of 2024. This man scores 2 rushing touchdowns in back-to-back-to-back games. His final 3 games, he scores 6 TDs, 2 TDs in every single one. Why? Because defenses are worried about Penix Jr. Defenses are covering Drake London. Defenses are having to now account for Kyle Pitts, Mooney. All the wide receivers are now a threat. So when at the 5-yard line, 8-yard line,
Blue 32, Bijan on 3.
you're worried about if Penix Jr. is going to step back and throw a laser to even Kyle Pitts, to London, to whoever in the end zone. Now Bijan has this much more room to run on this side, this much more room to run on this side. This man's going to average 8 to 5.0 yards per carry in 2025. That means to get 1,500 yards, divide that by, let's say, 5 yards per carry. 300 carries is all Bijan's going to need to get 1,500 yards. So let's just say he gets 5 yards per carry, 5 times 330. That would be 1,650. This is his floor. This is his floor. There are levels to this thing. 5 yards per carry, 1,500 yards. So let's rewrite that. Let's give this man what? Let's call it like this. This is a very simple way to determine Bijan Robinson's touchdown total on the ground, just rushing. I think it's pretty fair to say he could have 3 more multiple touchdown games in 2025. He ended the year with 3 straight 2 TD games. Is it fair to say he'll have at least 3 games with 2 TDs? That's 2, 4, 6 if you're counting. 6 touchdowns in a 3-game span. I think it's safe to say that the remainder of the season, he should be able to rush for 10 TDs. That makes me feel like it's a bare minimum of 16 rushing TDs in 2025. A bare minimum. Give him 3 to 4 receiving TDs, and we're talking about 19 to 20 total touchdowns. This seems like one of those seasons where he's the number 1. Honestly, in Best Ball Mania, Underdog promo code Smitty. Hit that link that's in the description. Underdog will match your first deposit up to 50%, all the way up to $1,000. But this is one of those things where, why are we drafting him after Jamar Chase anymore in Best Ball? Just because people smash wide receiver. It's time to start tapping Bijan at the 1.1 in Underdog. Then you give him his usual 58 and 61 are his 2 receiving totals from his 2 seasons. Let's just give him 60. No, let's give him the respect he deserves. This is a 65 to 70 reception back. I mean, he could literally have 90. This is a floor right here. I'm trying to be civilized here. I'm trying to be a civilized human being and not just get greedy and say, give me 90. Let's just say 65 to 70. No, give him the respect he deserves. 70. He had 431 yards last year and 1 TD receiving, but the year prior it was in the 470s. It was, like I said, it was in the 470s. He had the 4 touchdowns. I think it's pretty safe to go right at 499. And instead of 4 TDs, we don't have to get greedy. We can give him 3 receiving touchdowns. That's now 23 total touchdowns. What are we doing? Let's just put it back down to 21. All right, so 126 points for 21 TDs, another 150 for the 1,500 yards, another 49 for the 499 yards, and another 70 points for the 70 receptions. Jahmyr Gibbs was the number 1 running back in most scoring formats last year. Him and Barkley, depending on the scoring, it was about 361 points. Well, according to this data right here, Bijan scoring 395. This is the number 1 overall pick in fantasy football, even in full PPR, even in half PPR, even in Best Ball Mania. And I'm going to start smashing Bijan 1 overall going forward at a heavy clip. Drake London was wide receiver 5 or 6, depending on your scoring in 2024. Drake London pulled in 100 receptions for 1,271 and 9 TDs in 2024. Drake London was 9th in touchdowns, 4th in yards, and 9th in receptions. Drake London was on pace, and yeah, very hard to predict 3-game pace. I get it, but with Penix Jr. in the lineup in the last 3 games, he was on pace for 125 receptions and 1995 yardage wise. Top 5 in red zone targets, top 5 in target rate, top 5 in air yards. This 6'4", 215-pound, 23-year-old, soon to be 24-year-old, still very young, monster, is about to become a top maybe 3 to 5 wide receiver this year. Let's take this 100 and put it at about 110 floor. Let's take this 1271 and put it at 1300 floor. And this 9 TDs, we're going to put at 12 to 13 TDs floor. This could be much bigger, much better, much more glorious. This guy could be the wide receiver 2, 3, 4 overall. He's number 5 last year. We're not stretching much here. And this also makes him, when you're talking about entering that territory of round 2, where you're trying to think, what do I do if I do go running back in round 1? Well, Drake London's there for the taking at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Sometimes he goes before 15. It depends what kind of heavy wide receiver, saturation there is in your draft. But I would say this is a guy that could fall all the way to the middle of round 2. Obviously, the higher the second round pick you have, corresponding lower the first round pick, the more likely you are to get London. I think Rashee Rice is another great choice if you're from this point down in the second round and going RB. One of my favorite pairings, you're not going to really get a lot of Bijan and London together, but one of my favorite pairings would be if you could get Jahmyr Gibbs, who falls sometimes to 6 or 7. That could be a potential corresponding pick to get London. And if that won't fly, well, then you can go Ashton Genty instead of Gibbs here at the more later round 1 type of draft slot, which will get you a higher 2. Take these guys out just not to cause any confusion. This is what we're talking about. This is a fantastic start. And especially in auction drafts, London's a great wide receiver because he's going to play like these guys. This is a guy that belongs right where Puka is going, right where St. Brown's going, right where Neighbors is going, or maybe right below him. London deserves to be in round 1, and you're getting him in round 2. This might be one of the best wide receiver values in fantasy when you're considering the ceiling value. The fact that he can be the second or third wide receiver and you're getting him sometimes in the middle of round 2. I think with guys like Mooney, just to do these players quickly, I would say let's look at what Mooney did last year. Last year, 64, 992, and 5. I think is what Mooney did. Let's keep it in the 9s just to be safe. 990 and I think 6 to 7 TDs. That's very reasonable. Could he, that's his floor. Could he have 1,000 yard, 1050, 1090 and 6 to 7? Sure. But this would be a safe, I think, estimate for him. And there's nothing wrong with that number where you're getting him in drafts. And Kyle Pitts is a hard player to predict because even when Penix Jr. got in there, he started to drop footballs but then he kind of came around. Looking at his career stats here, I think it's pretty easy to say that his last 2 years, 47 and 53 receptions. Let's give him, I think he's going to get 60. I think he improves. I don't think he's in the middle. I think 602, 677. I think he improves there a little bit. We're not going to give him huge bumps, but this is understandable. He hasn't had a good quarterback. He's definitely not had the growth and maturity that he probably could have had, should have had, but I don't know that he's just going to be, vaulted into the 1,000-yard game again and get like 7 to 10 touchdowns. He still has never had 10 total touchdowns on his entire career. So let's not get too much ahead of ourselves, but I think something along the lines of 60 receptions, 706 is understandable. Maybe his ceiling could be 6 to 8. And maybe 700 to 965 to 70, like if we're talking about ceiling value versus floor value. And this defense is going to be pretty good as well. Picking up 2 edge rushers, I really like what the Falcons are going to look like from a fantasy football defensive, sleeper perspective. Could be a very surprising defensive grab, especially if you're streaming. I like this 12-5 team here. Bucks are next. Join me on the next one. Don't forget to get on over to my thefantasyfootballshow.com. Year-round rankings, bold predictions, trade calculators, everything you need to dominate your draft and dominate the in-season articles, waiver wire stuff. But get over there now, get your hands on all these different rankings, Superflex, Dynasty, Rookie, Super Rookie. which are rankings I create that include sophomores and rookies only, just to give a good barometer of dynasty value, the trade calculators, the bold predictions, the articles. Do it live, thefantasyfootballshow.com, link in description. And don't forget, I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday. Additionally, live whenever big news breaks, and also live most every single midnight Eastern for the Graveyard Show, where we often draft or do whatever. Join me. See you on the next one.